Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Oh, there's a lot of things happening right now in the UFO community. The good part is that it is being talked about on a regular basis now by people in Congress. There was a press conference today held by a group of a bipartisan group, no less, of House members talking about the efforts to push for disclosure, for UFO disclosure, or basically a demand for it. And we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to touch on something that I'm finding very confusing here. One of the loudest proponents of disclosure in Congress right now, and for a while, has been Tim Burchett, representative from Tennessee. And he was, of course, at that press conference today talking about these things. But he has put forth an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act bill of 2024. And this is a different than the one that was pushed by Senators Schumer and Rounds, the bipartisan legislation amendment that's coming out of the Senate. And there's seems to be a debate on to whether which one is bad and which one is good. You have some people saying that it's that the Burchett amendment would work better than the Schumer and Rounds amendment. And then you have other people saying it's a disaster. And then you have some people saying that they want both things to pass. I'm not sure exactly what's going on or what the intention here is going to be, or what they want the intention to be. I don't know what's going on here. And I'm sure that things will get straightened out before the National Defense Authorization Act bill is finalized with whatever amendments they put in there. And hopefully, whatever amendment it is, I hope it's going to be the best one, the one that will get things done quicker, get us closer to disclosure the fastest. I hope that's the case, but we don't know. Actually, there's somebody on Twitter, Dean Johnson, saying that this is the best route, that the Schumer Rounds amendment is the best route, and that the Tim Burchett one is not that good, and it wouldn't get us everything that we want. But then you have other people saying, like Representative Matt Gaetz, saying that the Tim Burchett amendment would be best for disclosure, to make it happen quicker. That I'm not sure who is wrong or who is right. Ross Coulthard, of course, the Australian investigative journalist and UFO disclosure proponent, he wrote on Twitter that if the Schumer, there's nothing wrong with the Schumer amendment. He actually points this out. He says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As Dean Johnson notes here, Matt Gaetz's proposed alternative, which is the Burchett amendment, to the Senator Schumer UAP amendment, is a calamitous dog's breakfast. Proper disclosure needs the Presidential Records Review Panel, as a laudably bipartisan Senate has already found. So I guess there's some people feel that the amendment that Burchett is putting forward is not as effective, while others thinks it's more effective than the Schumer one. I don't really know. I guess in a way I really don't care right now. I think the main thing here is the fact that you have people in Congress talking about this openly, and as long as you keep talking about this openly the way they are talking about it, then sooner or later the mainstream media is going to have to do something. As long as we keep this in the public consciousness, UFOs, via some of these people in Congress, and again, it's still it's a bipartisan group trying to get this through. As we know, there are some politicians who are trying to stop this. That's what this UFO caucus is saying. That's one of the things that they pointed out today on a couple of occasions. But they're still trying to do everything they can to get to get some sort of UFO transparency legislation into the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act. But anyway, let's check out what they said today during that press conference, and I'll critique it as we go through.
Well, thank y'all for being here. It's a very important issue, and this shows with the amount of coverage that we have. I'm Tim Burchett, Congressman from Tennessee. I've studied this issue for quite some time, and honestly, it just kind of fell in my lap up here. I believe our country, at least since 1947, has had a long history of covering this issue up. And this year, we were finally able to hold a legitimate hearing in July with credible witnesses who testified under oath to what they'd seen and experienced. The hearing this year faced a lot of pushback from the intelligence community, members of Congress, and of course our friends at the Pentagon. The intelligence community shut down an amendment I tried to include in the FAA reauthorization bill, and basically it would just require the Federal Aviation Administration to report UAP sightings by commercial pilots to Congress. I was told by the whip that bill was killed by the intelligence community, and I corrected him and I said, "You mean the intelligence committee?" And he said, "No, the intelligence community." And as they say, when you're over the target, that's when you get the most fire. And it just, like I said, it would just require the FAA administration to report UAP sightings by commercial pilots to Congress. Again, they spend a whole hell of a lot of time and effort and money to tell us something exists that does not exist. And so, fortunately, another amendment I introduced this year that was to increase transparency. And honestly, this is what this whole issue is about. It's about transparency. On the issue was included in this year's NDAA Act. It required the Department of Defense to declassify any documents and records relating to publicly known sightings of UAPs or UFOs that do not compromise the national security of the United States. It all comes down to one word. That word is transparency. I've been briefed on things I can't talk about in public because it's considered classified. Well, why are we classifying so much about this, especially if the information doesn't jeopardize national security and we have departments telling us that they do not exist? We are here today to discuss that. I've got several other notes, but I'll skip over them. I know y'all probably want to hear from the folks behind me. We had some great witnesses, as I've stated before, but these folks want to talk about more of the transparency and some of the pushback we're receiving from those aforementioned groups. And with that, I'll turn it over to my dear friend, Representative Luna, the mother of Henry. And if you get to see this kid, you got to see this kid. He's spectacular. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just stop there. That, of course, that was Tim Burchett, and he's been the loudest voice for us in Congress these days. And of course, he seems fed up with this, and I mean, I don't think him or any of these people would be talking unless they really believed that there is this cover up. I could understand where he's coming from. He's saying, well, you know, not all of this needs to be covered up. Why does this have to be? Why does the fact that there's an extraterrestrial presence have to be classified? That should not be classified. The world needs to know about this, and he believes that. And obviously, these people wouldn't be talking like this. They wouldn't be standing in front of the press and talking about UFOs if these people have seen more than the public has seen. There's things that they can't talk about. And that's what it feels like when you listen to these people talking here today. It sounds like they've seen things that pretty much has convinced them that there's obviously some non-human intelligence among us, and they think that the rest of the world needs to know this. The rest of the American citizens need to know this, right? And that's what it feels like after listening to this today. But anyway, let's listen to what Anna Paulina Luna has to say about this.
Thank you all for being here today. It is unacceptable that any mid-level unelected bureaucrat staffers can tell members of Congress that we are not allowed to access information about UAPs. Let me be clear that we are the representatives of the elected, of people that sent us here to do the right thing. Unelected bureaucrats do not get to say what we can and cannot see. We've had 3-star generals tell us that we did not have authorized access to this information. But yet, how do you expect us to continue to send taxpayer money to fund government projects if you're not even allowing us to see what those projects are?
Okay, let me just pause there for a second. She's making some great points here. It's basically unelected officials are telling the elected officials what they can and cannot see. They don't have access to certain things because these unelected officials are telling them no. Now, again, I pointed this out before. What they're going to say, what the Pentagon is, what the stunt that they're pulling here, and what they've been pulling for decades, is basically they could say, well, because we're trying to reverse engineer this stuff because we might be able to use this for our military because it's top secret. We can't let anybody else know that we're reverse engineering this stuff, and because of that, because we're basing this off these extraterrestrial craft that we have recovered, we can't tell the public about about that either, right? That's one of the main gist here. Forget about all this stuff you hear people saying about the way religions are going to collapse and societal collapse and catastrophic disclosure. All these, like, I don't really buy that. The bottom line is that they want to militarize this stuff that they have recovered. They want to reverse engineer it, and it blankets the whole. That because they're doing that, they want to keep that part secret. They feel they need to keep everything secret, even the extraterrestrial part. No, that's not the way it should be, though. I mean, it's too big a story. It's too big. It's gigantic information, and it should not just be up to it shouldn't just be in the hands of an elite group that gets to study it and nobody else knows about it. That can't be. You just can't do that. You still got to let us know. You got to let the American citizens know what you're recovering. That you have proof of extraterrestrial visitation. You have it. They have to let us know. Anyway, let's continue with Anna Paulina Luna here.
And I say that because, as some of you know, we have been consistently hearing that we do not have the authorized clearances, again, by people not elected to office. Let me repeat this. The people's representatives, members of Congress who sit on judiciary, armed services, and the oversight committees are being denied access to this information. But if we do not have the clearance, who does? Does this sound like a truly free country? Referencing Rush, I know there was many questions in regards to what was happening with his current IG report, whether or not we were able to receive access to that information. We were previously denied this. We have now received permission from him directly to go back into the SCIF to review that information. But in my short time in office, it has become very clear and evident that there is an apparent an orchestrated attempt to deny us this access, and it appears that is coming from the intelligence community.
Okay, let's just stop there. She's saying it right out that the intelligence community is denying our elected officials from seeing anything that has to do with UFOs. They're keeping it a secret. Now, if this isn't a calling card, a red flag, some sort of a signal to the mainstream media, I don't know what else could possibly be. I mean, you have people here telling you that they are hiding something. They're not showing them something that actually they have, that they won't tell them what it is. They're saying that you don't have the clearances. But so the mainstream media needs to do more about this. But as long as they keep doing this, as long as they keep holding press conferences, as long as they keep trying to push through legislation, whether any of these amendments that are on the table right now pass or not, that doesn't matter. As long as we keep doing this, we'll get to disclosure. But we need to keep these Congress people interested, and they need to stay engaged on this. They need to stay focused on this. Anyway, let's continue here with Anna Paulina Luna.
We have a rampant overclassification problem. We need the UAP Disclosure Act, which I would ask that if you see to my left, you have Representative Burchett's language, and it should be added. As we know, we do not want to go forward with fake promises to the American people. I'd also like to speak on the issue that some members have stonewalled our efforts to get transparency, and this is also unacceptable. No one member is above another, and the American people deserve to know as much about the existence in this universe as possible. They certainly have a right to know about whether or not if their safety is threatened, and most especially when it comes to our men and women defending us in the skies. This is a simple answer. Stop barring us from the truth.
Okay, I'm going to stop there before the next representative speaks. But anyway, that was some interesting comments that she made there. She's basically saying the people of this country deserve to know where they stand in the universe. That's basically what she's saying. That's because she's already seen enough to inform her that there is an extraterrestrial presence here. Why would she say something like that otherwise? That's because she knows that there's an extraterrestrial presence here, or at least non-human intelligence among us. That there is a UFO cover up. That they are reverse engineering these things, that she knows, or she wouldn't be making a statement like that. Anyway, let's continue. The next person speaking is Jared Moskowitz.
Good morning, good afternoon, I should say now. So I'm happy to be here with the folks that have really been talking about this since the beginning of Congress. So this is not something that I thought I would get involved in when I first came to Congress. But quite frankly, the reason why I got involved is as we started asking questions, legitimate questions, the pushback we got is what interests me. Every time we pulled a thread and we stumbled on something, it seemed that we would get stonewalled. And so, NASA has stated that the term UAP does not necessarily imply extraterrestrial origin, which means we could be making these things domestic. And so, look, if these are advanced technologies, we're not interested in hurting national security, but we are interested in knowing what these UAPs are.
Okay, I'm going to just stop there. I think that's interesting. Now, let me just say this. Okay, of course that there's some things, secret tech that's flying around up there that they tested that people see that might think that it's extraterrestrial. Of course, there's things that get misidentified and all that kind of thing. But again, there are extraterrestrials here, right? That's the whole bottom line. And we're not being told anything about what our government has learned about them for 75 plus years. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, it's there. These people have to know by this point. I mean, or they wouldn't be talking about this stuff. I mean, we just need to we need to pull this veil of secrecy back already. It's so maddening. Anyway, let's continue here.
You have the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office that was in the NDAA in 2022. And they have said, so the government has said, there's 366 reports of UAPs. A number of them they will not classify. They cannot explain to us. Some they say are weather balloons, some they say is clutter, some they say are other anomalies, but then there are a bunch that they don't explain. And I think you see not just a bipartisan approach here in the House, but you see a bicameral approach with Senator Chuck Schumer and what he's trying to accomplish. And that really just is transparency and disclosure. I think the American people have a simple question, which is if none of this exists, if this is all false, why at every turn are there people trying to stop the transparency and the disclosure?
Okay, that's a good. Well, yeah, they're trying to stop it. Let me just stop there for a second. They're trying to stop it because there is something there. There's an extraterrestrial presence that they don't want to tell anybody about, and they have recovered craft that these extraterrestrials have either landed or crashed or were downed some way or another. And that's what it is. They're hiding it. It's obvious. It's right in front of everyone's face right now, but. It's just time to blurt it out. It's time to come up. The secret control group, actually, these people who are in charge of this, they need to finally just come clean here. Let's avoid all of this. Let's skip all of this. Let's just get right to the end game here, and let's go. Let's answer the questions right now instead of having us go through all of this, having us have to jump through hoops. Right? Bureaucratic hoops. It's ridiculous already. Anyway, let's continue here.
Why are folks who are in charge of committees, whether they are in the House or in the Senate, opposed to this disclosure? And it's that point alone that piques the interest, right? And that's really what we're about. This is not about whether there are aliens or there are not aliens.
Excuse me. Yes, it is, though. It is about whether there are aliens or not aliens. There are aliens. Oh, there's most certainly aliens. It is about that. But it is also about transparency in the government. It's about a couple of different things. But it is most certainly about the extraterrestrial presence, regardless of what he's saying here.
Right? Those are questions that I think remain unanswered. Right?
I know. Let me just stop again. They are answered, though. The people in the know those answers. They have them answers. They have the evidence. They have the proof that could end all this debate. They have it. They've been sitting on it for a long time. It is true. And think about all the people that have experienced these things up close themselves, seeing either humanoid beings or their craft. I mean, there's millions of people. It has to be in the millions by this point after all these decades. People who have seen creatures or craft or both.
Not whether there is stuff we have found here or not found here. Those questions remain unanswered. The problem is when we ask those questions, right, rather than being provided information that would prove it false, they stonewall the information. And that is what piques the interest. Thank you.
Okay, and he says that what piques his interest is the fact that they keep stonewalling every time these people try to get more information about it. That's because they're stonewalling, because if they were to give them that information, then they would know for certain that there's an extraterrestrial presence here. They're keeping that from them. But I am certain that these members in this committee here, I think some of them have seen evidence. They have seen some video that they can't explain, that they know in their hearts was something that could not have been man-made. Anyway, let's continue here.
And we are here today because
Matt Gaetz.
all of the whistleblowers The hearings, the investigations, the discussions, the work that we have done have culminated in a negotiation that is happening in real time right now over the National Defense Authorization Act, a piece of legislation I care deeply about as a member of the House Armed Services Committee. And in that negotiation, we are fortunate that the amendment Congressman Burchett offered to the House version of the NDAA provides a beachhead for us to be able to get the answers and to be able to demand the transparency that is necessary. It is insufficient, though, to seek this transparency from the Department of Defense alone. We have to have cooperation so that Title 50 authorities through the intelligence community are also subject to review. That the FAA, the NSA, the FBI, even state and local authorities that have information are able to have that cataloged, assessed, and then put out before the public. It is my belief that the Burchett Amendment is the strongest position when coupled with the additional authorities and additional agencies that I've just mentioned in order to be able to get to that productive result. Unfortunately, we have members of the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee who right now are frustrating the effort that we are putting forward in order to be able to obtain the information and to move forward. I think it is productive that Senator Schumer has engaged on this issue. He's not an insignificant person in this town, but I am concerned about embracing a disclosure paradigm that mirrors the JFK assassination disclosure paradigm. I don't know that there are any Americans who would view the JFK assassination disclosure paradigm as some sort of vaulted standard. Time and again, we've seen that system fail. I also don't believe.
Let me just stop there for a second. Of course, now Matt Gaetz is saying here that the Schumer Rounds Amendment for UFO transparency, the UFO Disclosure Act, doesn't go far enough, and it's very reminiscent of some legislation that was passed in an effort to obtain more information on the JFK assassination. And he doesn't think that if they pass the bill the way it is, that's how it's going to play out. It's going to be the same thing. We're not going to get anything out of it. But of course, other people disagree strongly with this, and like Ross Coulthard says, the amendment from Burchett is a calamitous dog's breakfast, and that the other amendment from the Senate is the one that we should be trying to get passed. Again, I'm confused by all of it right now. I don't know exactly what. It's hard to really say what the difference would be here. But I don't know if somebody's trying to pull the wool over our eyes, or if somebody's trying to pull the wool over Tim Burchett's eyes, or someone's trying to pull the wool over the American citizens' eyes, or someone's trying to pull the wool over the Schumer Rounds amendments, or the senators. I don't know. Again, why don't we just bypass all of this and just let it all out instead of playing this dumb game? But of course we won't, and we're going to continue doing this. But again, it doesn't really matter because this is good. It's good for UFO disclosure. As long as these people keep talking and holding press conferences, it's going to keep it in the public consciousness, and that's the good thing that comes out of this. Anyway, let's continue here.
That pursuant to the Schumer language, we would have to wait 25 years in order to get this information. 25 years is a long time when you consider what Mr. Burchett said about the lack of veracity that the government has provided to people up until this point. And so we're here to call for the most inclusive, most robust provisions possible to be included in the NDAA. We don't want to see a lot of log jams created. And in the event that there's any designation of a national security concern regarding disclosure, we believe that this information can no longer be siloed with the entities that have frustrated disclosure. That there should be broader briefings to members of Congress, that the Oversight Committee, which many of my colleagues here serve on, should be receiving those briefings, that the Armed Services Committee should be receiving those briefings, and it should not just be the fiefdom of the Intelligence Committee and the intelligence community. And if we achieve that objective, I think we can start to restore some of the trust the public has. But as we work through the finer points of that legislation, we felt it was important today to come forward and express where the log jams exist, where the opportunities lay before us, and we will pursue those with great vigor. I also wanted to specifically thank House Armed Services Chairman Mike Rogers. He allowed the Burchett Amendment to go on the bill without objection. I think he is to be commended for that. And also when my colleagues, Ms. Luna and Mr. Burchett and I, were at an Air Force base and were told by Air Force officials that we weren't allowed to see information that whistleblowers had expressed to us existed. It was in fact Chairman Rogers himself who personally engaged with the Office of the Secretary of Defense and gave us the opportunity to view the images that were taken by pilots of some of these unidentified aerial phenomena. So work to be done, but we hope that this gives you clarity as to what our goals are, how the scope and depth of the mission ahead.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there for a second. Now he's talking about there how just recently. Now I've been talking about there's been several politicians that have been blocking this legislation from passing, and one of these people that one of the names that has been going around is Mike Rogers, the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and I've been talking about this guy too, Mike Rogers. Now Matt Gaetz here is thanking him for allowing the Tim Burchett amendment to show up on the in the House Armed Services Committee to vote on it, to talk about it and discuss it, and then to ultimately either voted against it or pass it, one or the other, and then it will move on to the full House. So he's saying he's thanking Mike Rogers for allowing that. But see, I'm see this is confusing now because we've been hearing all week, like from people who have connections in the UFO community, that Mike Rogers was one of the people that was holding up the Schumer amendment. But why is all of a sudden that changed now? I don't know what's going on behind the scenes here. What are the machinations behind the scenes with this? I'd like to know. Is it because the Burchett amendment is somewhat weaker and he'll allow that on there? I don't know. Are they going to have the Schumer amendment? Apparently they're going to vote on both of them now. I mean, so what's going on here? Where was this information about Mike Rogers coming from these connected people in the UFO community, saying him among other people, including the chairman of the House, Mike Johnson, and also Mike Turner from the House Intelligence Committee chair. He's the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He's opposed to this. And of course, we know about Mike Turner. He was actually on TV talking about this, opposed to it. So I'm wondering what's going on behind the scenes now. Now you have, where was this information about Mike Rogers coming from before? Why was he blocking it and now he's not? Or is he just allowing the Burchett amendment in his committee? I mean, I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, let's continue here with the next person who speaks, and that will be Eric Burleson.
I came to Congress thinking that this place was dysfunctional, and I had a general idea that the bureaucracy would try to block us. But seeing it from the inside, I can tell you it's worse than you can imagine. Everything that you suspect about the federal bureaucracy is doing, they're almost certainly doing. And it's nearly impossible to get a straight answer. So you all know my perspective, but at the end of the day, I think the taxpayers deserve to know where their money is being spent. The question we have before us is that, are we in an environment where the republic is being threatened by individuals and by people who are not elected to be able to withhold information from the public? And so I want to applaud the efforts of this group, and the folks standing behind me, especially Mr. Burchett, who, as he said, it's time for transparency. It's time for Tim's amendment to be passed, and as well as the Schumer amendment.
Okay, now here you hear Burleson saying it's time for both amendments to be passed. So again, there's confusion somewhere in the UFO community because it seems like some people think that just one of them is going to pass, but I don't think one could pass without the other one. I'm not even sure exactly. But I guess the bottom line is, again, we're talking about UFOs in Washington. That's the bottom line. And maybe if we just keep talking about it there, maybe we'll finally get what we need, what we hope for, the information that's been withheld from the public, information that so many of us are so interested in and would love to see, would love to have access to. Imagine having access to the Roswell files or to the Aztec UFO crash files. or any of those files from a crash retrievals, what the alien bodies look like, the various alien bodies, apparently all different kinds they've discovered. It'd be so interesting to have that information, pictures, film, video. Oh my God, think about how great it would be to study what the United States government has been secretly studying for decades. Imagine having that at your fingertips, going onto some sort of a government website where they have it all laid out for you, video, documentation, all kinds of stuff that was hidden from the public for decades, and all of a sudden there it is to look at. Wouldn't it be so fantastic? Anyway, let's continue here.
While they may not be perfect in their current forms, it gets us in a better direction. And it's my belief that both of them will actually put us in a better place. I don't think that they have to be mutually exclusive. At the end of the day, if we want transparency, we should be going after every avenue that we can to get the information to the American people. Thank you.
Okay, that was good. That was a right to the point, and he wants to just get that information out there. Is he saying both of these amendments should be included? And even if there are problems with them, so what? At least we're still moving the ball forward. We're still moving the issue forward. We're not just being staying in one spot. That's what he's saying. So that sounded pretty good. Anyway, and the next person here is Andy Ogles.
Well, again, thank you all. This is about accountability and about transparency. It's about holding the deep state to task for their refusal to declassify information that the American people need to know, that Congress needs to know. In July, I questioned highly decorated naval and intelligence officers who had been in aircraft, who had seen UAPs. And what they told me was alarming. These officers told us that when encountering these UAPs, had they had to defend themselves or their aircraft or their personnel, they would not have been able to do so.
Okay, let's just stop. You heard what he just said. Pilots are telling him that they would not be. There is no way that they would be able to defend themselves against these objects. So let's ask yourself a question. You think that China or Russia has those kind of flying devices, and that's what we're dealing with here? There's no way. Absolutely no chance. If they did, then they would have already tried to take the United States over. They don't. Nobody has the kind of stuff that these pilots are seeing. Anyway, continuing.
Military intelligence officials swore when giving those statements. Foreign objects are buzzing around in our airspace, and Joe Biden's over 30 generals have not only been silent on the issue, but yet have yet to play ball with Congress. Not to mention, American farmers are seeing intelligence aircraft above their fields. There have been 144 reported sightings of these objects that we know of, and the DoD is more concerned about pronouns and woke agendas than informing Congress and having accountability and having transparency. In a moment when American supply chains are broken, our border is overrun, and Chinese ownership in American institutions has skyrocketed, American defenses against unknown aircraft are paramount. Because of this bipartisan effort in the House and now the Senate, intelligence agencies are now beginning to tout exploratory measures to investigate UAPs. So if this needs to be an expeditious process, not 25 years, that's unacceptable. It should be noted that the Kennedy deadline has been blown through a couple of times. The information released has been less than full disclosure. And so whether it's little green men, American technology, or worse, technology from the CCP, we need to know. There needs to be better cooperation amongst agencies, and Congress has a right, an obligation to know. This is about transparency. This is about accountability. The truth is out there, and the American people are ready. Does anyone have any questions?
All right. Well, it seemed like he was getting a little political there. It seemed Again, it's somebody else that's on the side of pushing for disclosure, and it's always welcomed. I wish the bipartisan group needs to stick. This is the one topic, the one subject that they seem to get along with on, and that's what they need to try to keep it that way. So hopefully, there's not going to be any sort of politics that are going to start going on between the UFO topic here. I hope that this issue in Washington stays where it's at, stays how it's been for the most part, which is people working together. Of course, now, as we know, that there were some people in Congress who are trying to block this legislation. But hey, and that could be it could be anybody from any political party, right? It doesn't really matter. But the fact is that there are some people that were trying to prevent this from going through, who don't want to do this, who don't want to see it go through, and the reason is because they receive money, a lot of campaign bucks from the military-industrial complex. Anyway, let's continue here with the hearing.
Yes, sir.
Or excuse me, with the press conference. Now, this is when they started asking questions here. There was reporters that asked questions, and the people, the representatives took turns answering the questions.
Two, on the amendment, Mr. Conklin, that you have it's page and a half. The Senate version of that is 64 pages. I'm just wondering, are there other things that you're going to be hoping to do? They have a lot more than and the domain thing or whatever, or is that it on your end?
I would like to believe that would be it. I think we've overcomplicated the issue. 64 pages, and Matt alluded to the 25 years. I mean, good gosh, we modeled something after the Kennedy assassination situation, and we're still waiting. Even it just peruse that they allowed a delay of 300 days, and then there's the blanket if it's a national security issue. So it just, to me, we've got a lot of doors that could be opened, and I think this is I just like a clear, concise way to do it. And I don't think a bunch of lawyers looking over our shoulders going, here.
In that.
Yeah. Sorry, but I mean, the lawyers.
We're literally looking over your
Yeah, looking over my shoulders. I just think simplification is the way to go. Simplify.
And the second one was just, you made the distinction between the Intel community and the Intel committee. Could you characterize how the Intel committee here is responding to your legislation?
I think I can speak to that just because, we had an NDAA conference meeting yesterday where members of the House and Senate both raised this issue in debate, and the strongest resistance to transparency and disclosure and the Burchett language has come from the House Intelligence Committee. Other questions?
So Matt Gaetz just said there that the strongest opposition was from the House Intelligence Committee, which is chaired by Mike Turner. And as we know, Mike Turner has been someone who's showed up on TV speaking against UFO disclosure for the most part, says there's nothing to see here, basically. And he does receive lots of money from the military-industrial complex for his campaigns.
Yeah, right.
So, when you raise these concerns about the Intel community being the ones that seem to be the roadblock every time you ask questions, is it your suspicion then that what these phenomenon are more likely to be are intelligence technology as opposed to little green men? Is that what you're trying to figure out or drill down on?
Yeah, I think that the ambiguity there creates frustration among all of us. The fact that we don't know, and of course, if you have an encounter where some of our country's sensitive technology is observed, there has to be a mechanism to ensure that that's not available to our enemies. But that does not justify the multi-decade roadblock that we have encountered. And as you heard from Ms. Luna, when we've got unelected staff members limiting our access to SCIFs and to the types of briefings that we want to receive as elected lawmakers, it really raises questions about whether or not this is really the propriety of some of our intelligence assets or whether it's part of the cover-up. And only when we get the information will we be able to parse that distinction.
See, it seems like they're, Gates carefully, he doesn't really, he can't say, he doesn't know. He says he doesn't know what it is. It could be whether it's something that was constructed by human beings from some other country, maybe, or whether it's something that's, well, the way they put it, little green men. They like to use that one still. It's not even funny at this point. I mean, they've been making a joke about this for so many years, and it's just part of the it's part of the collective unconscious now. Everyone thinks this way. I mean, we've been conditioned. A lot of us. It's hard to break that conditioning. And even for someone like me, because there was a time in my life where I didn't give UFOs or aliens any sort of credence whatsoever. So there is one part of my brain that says, "Oh, that's crazy," right? Everybody has that. But I know it's not crazy because I've seen one of these creatures and I've seen one of their craft. And plus, you do the research yourself and you understand that most certainly that there's something going on here, and it's not as silly as people have led us to believe for all this time. But I think that I think people like Gates and everybody standing on that stage, I think I think privately they would tell you that it's extraterrestrial. They know. They're certain at this point. They've seen some video. Some of them have anyhow. In a skiff in secret closed locations. They were shown some things that most certainly boggled their minds and made them realize that, oh my God, there's no way that anybody created this. In fact, they do make statements to that effect. Tim Burchett, toward the end, says there's things there that he doesn't understand. So they know. Anyway, let's continue.
Speaking with the intelligence community, the CIA has reportedly got this secret office, been investigating this for decades, and has recovered some 9 instances of possibly extraterrestrial material. So, is the CIA, you believe they're hiding something? And if so, what is it?
Well, I believe that the recalcitrance from the CIA and from the intelligence community may be animated by some of the cover-up that we have seen up to this point. I hope that's not true, but I'm concerned that it is. And so that's why the Burchett language currently in the NDAA gives us a beachhead to be able to access not only Department of Defense authorities and Department of Defense activities and programs, but we have to actually get into what the CIA has done with UAPs.
But you got to ask yourself, since 1947, they told us this. Since 1947, basically, they've told us these don't exist. Yet now we're finding out they're spending millions of dollars. NASA has reports on it. The CIA now has reports on it. But yet the Pentagon keeps telling us they don't exist. So again, we're spending a heck of a lot of money to tell people something, to investigate something that doesn't exist.
But you're asking.
Okay, let me just stop there again. Tim Burchett making a great comment there. We're spending a lot of money. Our Department of Defense is spending a lot of money to investigate something that doesn't exist. That's so true. I mean, it's so true. So much effort has gone on into researching UFOs. And a lot of it, do have documentation to this effect. There's no question about it. The Pentagon has been concerned about UFOs ever since 1947, and that concern has never, ever ended. They're still concerned about it. In fact, now their backs are against the wall because they're starting to feel the public pressure, finally, because they can't cover this up anymore with the expansion of the internet. There's just too many people out there that you can't stifle anymore. You just can't stifle everybody. So their backs are against the wall now, and it's going to come out. And they're not going to be able to stop it. At some point, it's going to come out. And hopefully, it comes out sooner rather than later. I'd rather just start see some of these whistleblowers step into the spotlight and with evidence, with some end all evidence under their arm to show us all. That's what I would really hope. Anyway, let's continue here.
The right question, if I can just jump in for a second, please. Because here's again what just doesn't make logical sense, right? Is if this is all nonsense, right? Then why are we seeing constant, from different areas of government, whistleblowers coming out with things that are credible? Why, as legislators, are we being stonewalled? Why does it feel like, just as we're making some progress, all of a sudden the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future come out to talk to staff or legislators that then all of a sudden aren't on board with more disclosure? And I think that's the American people who are following this. That is the same question that you're asking that they're asking. We see the Pentagon not being able to pass an audit for 6 years straight. Grush testified under oath that, part of these programs, these advanced technology programs, are being funded by overfunding programs in some areas of the budget, or backdooring money. And so, again, we have been asking these questions, from the financial standpoint and from the transparency standpoint. And Ryan, same question that you had. The intelligence community does not want to share any of this information with Congress. We're asking why. Why? And that it makes it appear that there is a substantial reason why they don't, not an insubstantial reason, right? It's not just maybe it's one of our new toys, right? And so that's, I think, why you see this group pressing so hard.
Okay, let me just pause it out again. That was Jarrett Moskowitz again, and he made some interesting statements there for sure. Basically saying, well, why are they stonewalling? And if there's nothing there, then how come they're making it? They're basically blocking you from seeing the nothing. They won't present that nothing to you. They tell you, no, we can't let you see this. If there's nothing, so if there's nothing to it, then why won't you? It's classified. I mean, it's just a vicious circle. There's no answers. We don't get any straight answers. The Congress isn't getting straight answers from the Pentagon on this, and we could understand why. The reason is why don't they want to come out at this point? Part of it has to be because of how long they've been lying. That has to be part of it at this point. 76 years. It's really the fault of the people who started this. I believe. I mean, they waited too long. I mean, by 1957, the truth should have been out. Okay, 58. By the late 50s, the world should have known the truth on this. But now it just seems so far out of hand. It seems ridiculous to come out. People are not going to. The people out there right now who don't trust government, and that's why it's so hard for this secret control group to come out and say it, because they're afraid of the reaction people are going to have for being lied to for all these decades. Now, of course, if you're someone from the UFO community, you're already beyond that. You already know that they're lying. I'm already over that. I just want them to come out with it, and we need to move on. That's where I'm at with it. Anyway, let's continue here.
If you go back to the hearing and think about what was said in committee, is that, you're seeing this increased activity, yes, near military installation, yes, near conflicts, areas of operation, but you're also seeing it near our nuclear installations. And if you assume for a moment that it's American technology, we have normal areas of operation that we would test new aircraft, right? But it's now conflicting with commercial aircraft. So again, there's got to be an accountability mechanism that if it is our technology, that it's being operated safely, that it's being tested safely. And if it's Chinese technology, then we need to know and ask those questions of, are we ready? What are we doing to counter that? So I don't know if it's Little Green Men or U.S. Technology or the CCP, but they're engaging in around our nuclear facilities. And I don't care who it is or where it's from, that should concern you. There are questions that need to be asked. There are questions that need to be answered. And I'll be damned, we're going to find those answers, and we're going to turn over every stone until we get them.
Let me just follow.
Okay, let me just, somebody should fill Andy Ogles in. It's not China. It's not Russia, right? It's not those guys, right? It's aliens from someplace else. That's from not of this world. That's who it's been all these years. This has been going on for decades. He needs to pick up a history book on this and educate himself on this. And then he wouldn't, because actually a lot of them are saying this. Oh, it could be Chinese. It could be Russia. They're trying to scare you with this stuff. But that's not what it is. That's not what it is. It's most certainly extraterrestrial. That's why they're keeping it secret. I mean, if it was something from China or Russia that was coming over here, they would tell you. They would say, okay, look, they're trying to attack us. They're going to have to let the people know that we might be, somebody might be trying to start a war with us, right? But that's not where they're coming from. This ain't some spy craft from China or some spy craft from Russia. It's not. It's these. For the most part, these things are extraterrestrial, and they've been dealing with them since 1947, and they just look where we're at. We have people, the people we elect, they're still not able to get any answers. It's incredible, isn't it?
A little bit of what Congressman Gage, you said about having to fight to get access to see some of the images. So to the best of you can answer this question, have any of you seen something to lead you to believe stronger in the existence of something extraterrestrial, not Chinese or otherwise.
Yeah, I am hesitant to make that leap, but what I can tell you.
Okay, Matt Gaetz is hesitant to make that leap. They're afraid to take that leap because by taking that leap, they're basically telling the world that that would be disclosure, actually, wouldn't it? If they start stepping up and just saying outright it's extraterrestrial, that's what it is. But they're not taking that leap quite, are they?
Is that when Congresswoman Luna and Congressman Burchett and I were at Eglin Air Force Base, and there were hours of frustrations where they didn't want to let us see a photograph taken by a pilot during a test flight. When I saw the photograph, ultimately, thanks to Chairman Rogers weighing in with the Office of the Secretary of Defense, I can tell you it is of nothing that I'm aware of having existing in our arsenal of assets. And I'm on the Armed Services Committee for 7 years. I'm not unfamiliar with the things that we have at our disposal, and it was not something that I could classify as something that we would possess or a capability that any of our adversaries possess, because we also keep pretty close eye on those capabilities as well. So that leaves the question rather open.
Okay, he just told you. So then they're what great politicians they are, right? The way they could talk. I mean, basically he's saying, he can't really say that for sure, but then he tells you that this is something I know it's not in our arsenal, and there's just no way it could be China's or Russia's. Then okay, then what's left? Who is it? Is it North Korea or something? Did Iran come up with something maybe? What? No, it's extraterrestrial. That's what it is. That's what it is. Anyway, let's continue here.
On that?
In the testimony, there was 13 or 14 documented near misses with our aircraft. So that alone we should ask the question, what's going on? If it's our own people, why are we putting our own people at risk?
Matt?
They're not put. See, here's the thing. They had these near misses with UFOs sometimes. It wasn't crashed. They didn't crash ultimately, but there was near misses. But so Burchett saying, well, why are we putting them near risk? They're not putting them near risk. It's just that sometimes these things show up, right? Extraterrestrials are checking us out or whatever they're doing, whatever they're up to. That's what it is. Anyway, continuing.
I had your questions answered from what happened at the start of the year, the spy balloon incidents. And you guys all keep mentioning China. Why couldn't it be Russia or some other nation? Well, what makes you assume?
Yeah,
Russia can't win in Ukraine. They don't. They can't. Yeah, they had this kind of.
I don't have a lot of unanswered questions from the Chinese spy balloon incident. I can tell you that our concern about China, particularly in the Gulf of Mexico, emerges from their increased activities in Cuba. And if they are building out more capabilities, and frankly, you see a leveraged buyout of old Russian assets in Cuba being turned over to Chinese control. And so that's what animates our interest in that. Yes.
So my first question is, are we seeing any actual progress towards actual transparency? And second of all, in regards to the UAP Disclosure Act, Congressman Burchett, what kind of changes would you like to see to be done to it?
First answer is no. The second is, I'd just like to see more transparency. That's all I want. You all are in the media. That's what we got to have. And it's very difficult for me to go home and talk to people who don't trust the government when the government is telling them something doesn't exist, but is spending millions, if not billions of dollars on researching what doesn't exist.
If I can jump in too real quick, to be clear, I think that Schumer's efforts here are probably the floor as to where we would like to see disclosure begin. So not to say that they're not good efforts. I think basically any step forward is a step forward in the right direction here. But again, going back to just what we have faced, it shouldn't be the case that it is this complicated to release this information. And also just to put it out there, I mean, it should scare the American people that there is maybe, whether it's special interest or corporation, that thinks that they have a say in what your taxpayer dollars go to and also what information the American people are not stupid. we can handle this information. Other countries have declassified similar information, and it's time that the United States steps up to the plate and does the same.
Okay, again, I was going to stop there. It's interesting to hear Paulina Luna pointing out that the American people could handle this information. Okay, if it was something from some other foreign adversary, right, then we've been handling that for how many decades now, right? That's nothing. She's basically telling you that we can she's telling us that the people could handle the truth about the extraterrestrial reality. That's what she believes. She knows in her mind, she's seen enough that her and her colleagues there, they know that it's extraterrestrial. That's what's going on there. Anyway, let's continue.
One aspect of the Schumer amendment that draws a little concern for me is an appointed body that would review information or photographs or what have you before it's released to the public. And that is an appointed body that the American public would have no control over. It'd be appointed by a politician. You know who'd be on there. You'd have the missile defense companies. You'd have the usual cast of characters. And to me, that casts a chilling effect on the whole thing. In my opinion.
I want to add something to Tim.
Okay, let me just stop there now. Okay, he's talking about that's Tim Burchett talking about the Schumer Rounds amendment. What Ross Coulthard said is he thinks that that's better. Some people in the UFO community believe that's better. And Ross Coulthard had actually written, proper disclosure needs the Presidential Records Review Panel, as a laudably bipartisan Senate has already found. So Burchett saying he has a problem with that it's going to be bureaucratic people picked by elected officials, but these people will be unelected and they'll make the final decision on whether something should be public or not with regard to UFOs. I guess that's his concern. I guess that is a legitimate concern, isn't it? Anyway, let's continue here.
I want to give him some credit. So back to the question is, have we seen progress? I mean, listen, it's not like the 118th Congress is doing a lot of things, right? So in fairness, right, I think we're at the same pace. I think because of Tim's efforts and the group behind us, we are actually seeing a lot of progress. First of all, we had a hearing in the House that had never happened before. The Intelligence Committee had a hearing that hadn't happened in 50 years. Okay? We've now had multiple press conferences on this. You're having legislation introduced not just in the House, but in the Senate. So this has come a long way from the times when Harry Reid was talking about it or Marco Rubio was talking about it. You now have a bipartisan, bicameral effort. And so, this place does a lot of things, unfortunately, incrementally, right? It doesn't do big things at the moment. So I got to, Tim is the one who has spearheaded a lot of this. And so, to give him a little more credit that he's willing to give himself, I think we're making a lot of progress. We just have to accept the fact that the pace here in Washington, that we're caught up in that same pace.
Okay, that was some great comment there by Jared Moskowitz, pointing out the fact that, regardless of what's happening, this is all good because it's keeping this in the public eye. UFOs. I mean, look at every day. You go on the internet, you go on Google, you type in UFOs, you'll get a whole myriad of brand new articles that were just written, in a lot of major publications. So a lot of named publications online. Some of them are niche kind of publications, but still it's out there a lot. I mean, there are some semi big media outlets such as News Nation that's constantly pumping these articles out and pumping videos out and little news bits on their cable channel. So you have that going on. It's constant. There's a constant churn of UFO stories on the internet every single day now. There's always something happening. At all times there's something to talk about, and that needs to stay that way until we get to where we need to be, and that is full disclosure. Anyway, let's continue with the press conference.
Yes.
Now, have you been able to see any documents or videos, etc., that would be considered classified? And follow up if there's a yes there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have.
And so, when you see them, have you said to yourself, there's no way this is a threat to national security? Why is it still being classified?
I have reviewed classified information and thereafter, wondered to myself why that would be classified. And so I have had those concerns. I've also, as a member of the Armed Services Committee, seen some radar signatures and other information that even my colleagues who are not on the Armed Services Committee have not been able to see. And that concerns me as well. I think we ought to democratize that information at a minimum throughout the Congress, and I think more productively with the American people. We'll take one more.
And I was just going to say, I've seen stuff by whistleblowers that you would all be scratching your head.
Okay, let me just stop there. Now you heard Tim Burchett. He's seen some stuff from whistleblowers that we'd all be scratching our head to. Wow. I mean, we wouldn't be. I wouldn't be scratching my head at a Chinese balloon or a Chinese drone or a Chinese satellite or a Chinese aircraft for that matter. That wouldn't cause me to stop and wonder about life or my place in the universe. He's talking about extraterrestrial craft. That's what he's talking about. Anyway, let's continue.
Go ahead, last question.
Congressman Gates, you mentioned members of the House Intelligence Committee pushed back on this. Did they give you any reason for that? I mean, what are they saying? Can you characterize that?
When, the reaction I've gotten is just sort of a broad brush national security concern. There's not been really an itemized critique of the Burchett amendment to the NDAA. It's been more just a generalized veto from the Senate Armed Services Committee and the House Intelligence Committee. And that's most unfortunate. Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. Yep. So he said it's been a broad brush. See, that's the whole thing. See, the problem is that they want to keep the reverse engineering and the crash retrieval aspects secret. They don't want the people to know about that, right? But because of that, it's almost just the same thing what he's saying here. What Gates just said, they're using a broad brush in the Armed Services Committee. They're painting the whole. They don't want to talk about UFOs because they're concerned about those elements, the reverse engineering and crash retrieval aspects of it. I mean, actually, the people in the House Armed Services Committee aren't really concerned about it. They're just concerned. They're just puppets, right? Some of them. So the ones who are against this are, again, they're receiving orders from the people that they know in the Pentagon, and that's the problem. But the people in the Pentagon, they actually been painting this whole issue with a broad brush ever since it started. I mean, they could have kept the crash retrieval, reverse engineering part of it. Okay, you could keep some of that secret, right? You keep the reverse engineering part most certainly secret, right? But you can't keep all the crash retrieval information secret. You got to let the world know about the extraterrestrial presence. But they're keeping the whole thing. He says he's basically just said that the House Armed Services Committee has a generalized veto there. Why would that be? Why would that be? Because a lot of those people in that committee, one of the reasons that they're there is because they have close associations with the military-industrial complex, and so that's why they're placed in those committees. This is all by design, right? And then they'll vote against it. Republicans and Democrats. Doesn't matter what party you're with. It depends on which one of these people are receiving some significant contributions for their campaigns and from whom. So that's what it all boils down to. But again, whatever the case, what's ever going on right now, there is some issue right now apparently with these amendments. Which one will pass? Will both of them pass? I don't know. It sounds like some of them here, just Matt Gaetz, it sounded to me like he just wants the one to pass, the Tim Burchett amendment. It sounded like another member there, Eric Burleson, said he wants both of them passed. And then you have people like Ross Coulthard saying that the Schumer Rounds amendment is the way to go. The Tim Burchett one stinks, but you have other people saying no, the Tim Burchett one will make it better. I don't know what's going on with that, but again, it doesn't matter. The fact is that these people are meeting and talking, holding press conferences, trying to get more closed meetings with whistleblowers. They're supposed to meet with David Grush again finally. So that's what's important right now, is just keeping this in the public consciousness, keeping the public thinking about UFOs. There's the people who don't even think about UFOs will hear it here and there. Some people maybe, not everyone's paying attention to this, but it might show up on some cable news channel as a 5-minute little bit toward the end of the show, and maybe somebody who doesn't really care will hear about it and become interested and then go online to get more information. You just got to keep it in the public atmosphere. Keep it going, and that's what's good about what's happening right now. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.